The autumn air carried a gentle chill as Jake Martinez sat on the wide stone steps of the city museum. His leather tool bag rested beside him, worn from years of honest work. The brass buckles caught the late afternoon sunlight that filtered through the golden maple trees lining the street. Jake had just finished repairing the museum's old heating system, a job that had taken most of the day. He was tired, but it was the good kind of tired that comes from working with your hands and solving problems. Jake had always found comfort in fixing things. There was something satisfying about taking apart a broken machine, understanding what had gone wrong, and putting it back together so it worked perfectly again. As he sat there, enjoying a moment of quiet before heading home, Jake noticed a small figure approaching. A little girl, maybe 5 or 6 years old, walked slowly up the steps. She wore a light blue dress over striped leggings and a pink knit hat with a fluffy pom-pom on top. In her arms, she clutched a small teddy bear with soft brown fur and a red ribbon around its neck. The girl moved carefully, as if each step required thought and effort. Her cheeks were pale, and Jake could see dark circles under her eyes. She looked tired in a way that seemed too heavy for someone so young. When she reached the step where Jake was sitting, she stopped and looked at him with curious eyes. "Hello," Jake said gently, his voice warm and friendly. "Are you here to visit the museum?" The little girl nodded slowly. "My name is Emma," she said in a quiet voice. "I was supposed to meet my mom inside, but the steps are really big." Jake looked at the remaining steps leading up to the museum's entrance. There were at least 20 more, each one tall and wide. For an adult they were manageable. For a small child who seemed unwell, they might as well have been a mountain. "Those are pretty big steps," Jake agreed. "I'm Jake. It's nice to meet you, Emma." He gestured to his tool bag. "I was just fixing some things inside the museum today." And Emma's eyes lit up slightly. "You fix things?" "That's right. I'm a mechanic. I fix heating systems, air conditioners, all sorts of machines that help buildings work properly." Jake smiled. "What about you? Do you like to fix things?" Emma hugged her teddy bear closer. "Sometimes I try to fix Mr. Buttons when his stuffing comes out." She held up the bear so Jake could see. "Mom sews him back up for me." "Mr. Buttons is a good name for a teddy bear," Jake said. "He looks very well loved." For a moment, they sat together in comfortable silence. Jake watched as Emma looked up at the remaining steps, then back at him. She seemed to be thinking about something important. "Mr. Jake," Emma said finally. "Yes. If you carry me up the stairs, I'll tell you a secret." Jake studied the little girl's face. There was something serious in her expression, something that made him pay closer attention. "What kind of secret?" he asked gently. Emma looked around as if making sure no one else could hear. "It's about why I'm sick," she whispered. Jake felt his heart tighten. He had suspected that Emma wasn't feeling well, but hearing her say it so matter-of-factly made it real. "Are you sick, sweetheart?" Emma nodded. "I have to go to the hospital a lot. Today was supposed to be a special day because Mom said we could come to the museum instead, but I got tired on the steps." Jake looked at the entrance to the museum, then back at Emma. He could see how much this visit meant to her. "Would you like me to help you get to the top?" he offered. "You would do that?" "Of course. But first, you should tell me your secret. A deal is a deal, right?" Emma smiled for the first time since Jake had met her. It transformed her entire face, making her look like the child she was instead of someone carrying worries too big for her years. "Okay," Emma said, scooting closer to Jake. "But you have to promise not to tell anyone else." "I promise." Emma leaned in close, her voice dropping to a whisper. "I know how to make the pigeons dance." Jake blinked in surprise. Of all the secrets he might have expected, this wasn't one of them. The pigeons dance. Emma pointed to a small flock of pigeons that had gathered near the bottom of the steps. "Watch." She began to hum softly, a simple melody that seemed to float on the autumn air. Then, remarkably, she started to sway gently from side to side while still sitting on the step. The sound was sweet and pure like a lullaby. Jake watched in amazement as the pigeons began to move. At first, it seemed like coincidence, but as Emma continued her gentle humming, the birds started to bob their heads in rhythm. Some took small steps back and forth. Others fluffed their feathers and turned in slow circles. "How did you learn to do that?" Jake asked, genuinely impressed. "I figured it out when I was waiting outside the hospital one day," Emma explained. "I was feeling really sad, so I started humming a song my mom sings to me." The pigeons came over and started moving with the music. It made me feel better. Jake felt a warmth spread through his chest. Here was this little girl dealing with illness and hospital visits, and she had found a way to create joy and beauty in the world around her. That's a wonderful secret, Emma. Thank you for sharing it with me. Now will you help me up the stairs? It would be my honor. Jake carefully packed his tools back into his leather bag and slung it over his shoulder. Then he knelt down beside Emma. How would you like to ride? I could carry you, or you could sit on my shoulders if you'd prefer. Emma considered this seriously. Could I ride on your shoulders? I've never done that before. Sure thing. But you'll need to hold on tight, okay? And keep Mr. Button safe too. Jake helped Emma climb onto his shoulders, making sure she was secure before standing up slowly. She was lighter than he had expected, and he could feel how carefully she held herself, as if she was used to being gentle with her own body. This is really high, Emma said with delight as Jake began to climb the steps. You're doing great, Jake said. How does it look from up there? I can see the whole street. And look, the pigeons are following us. Jake glanced back and saw that Emma was right. Several of the pigeons had begun hopping up the steps behind them, as if drawn by their new friend's presence. As they climbed, Emma began to hum again, the same sweet melody she had used before, but now it seemed to carry further in the crisp air. Jake found himself walking in rhythm with her song, taking the steps at a pace that matched her gentle tune. Mestra, Jake, Emma said as they neared the top. Yes, sweetheart. Why do you think music makes things better? Jake thought about this as he took another step. I'm not sure, he said honestly, but I think maybe it's because music connects us to something bigger than ourselves. When you hum for the pigeons, you're sharing something beautiful with them. It makes them happy, and that makes you happy too. Like when Mom sings to me when I don't feel good, exactly like that. They reached the top of the steps, and Jake carefully helped Emma down from his shoulders. She stood for a moment, looking back at the steps they had climbed together. The pigeons had gathered at the bottom, still moving gently to the rhythm of a song only they could remember. I did it, Emma said with quiet pride. You absolutely did. You made it all the way to the top. Just then, the museum doors opened and a woman with Emma's same blonde hair hurried out. Emma! There you are. I was getting worried when you didn't come inside. Mom! Emma ran to her mother, who immediately knelt down to wrap her in a hug. This is Mr. Jake. He helped me up the stairs, and I showed him how to make the pigeons dance, and Emma's mother looked up at Jake with grateful eyes. Thank you so much. I'm Sarah, Emma's mom. I was just inside getting our tickets, and when I came back to look for her, she was perfectly safe, Jake assured her. Emma was just taking her time with the steps. We made a deal. She taught me one of her secrets, and I helped her reach the top. Sarah smiled, and Jake could see where Emma got her warmth. What secret did you share? She asked her daughter. About the pigeons? Show her, Mr. Jake! Jake laughed. I think that's your special talent, Emma. I was just the audience. Emma looked down at the pigeons, who were still gathered at the bottom of the steps. She began to hum her melody again, and sure enough, the birds began their gentle dance. Sarah watched in wonder. I had no idea, Sarah said softly. Emma, that's beautiful. I learned it when we go to the hospital. Emma explained matter-of-factly. It makes the waiting not so scary. Jake felt his throat tighten with emotion. This little girl had taken her difficult experiences and transformed them into something magical. She had found a way to bring joy to the world, even while dealing with challenges that would overwhelm many adults. Well, Jake said, picking up his tool bag, I should let you two enjoy your museum visit. Wait, Emma said, tugging on his sleeve. Do you want to come see the dinosaurs with us? Jake looked at Sarah, who nodded encouragingly. You're welcome to join us. It's the least we can do after your kindness. Jake almost said no. He had work to finish, calls to return, a dozen practical reasons to head home. But looking at Emma's hopeful face and thinking about the gift she had shared with him, he found himself nodding. I'd love to see the dinosaurs. They spent the next hour walking through the museum together. Emma's energy seemed to return as they explored the exhibits. She peppered Jake with questions about how things worked, the air conditioning system that kept the museum comfortable, the lights that illuminated the displays, the elevators that carried visitors between floors. Jake found himself explaining each system in simple terms, watching as Emma's eyes lit up with understanding. She was curious about everything, approaching the world with a sense of wonder that Jake realized he had lost somewhere along the way. At the dinosaur exhibit, Emma stood transfixed in front of a massive Tyrannosaurus Rex skeleton. "Do you think dinosaurs could hear music?" she asked. "I don't know," Jake admitted. "But if they could, I bet they would have loved your pigeon song." Emma giggled at this idea. Maybe that's why they're all bones now. No one sang to them. As the afternoon grew late, they made their way back to the museum entrance. Emma was moving more slowly again, and Jake could see that the excitement had tired her out. Without being asked, he knelt down so she could climb back onto his shoulders for the trip down the steps. "Thank you for today, Mr. Jake," Emma said as they descended. "This was the best museum day ever." "Thank you, Emma. You taught me something important today." "What's that?" "That the most amazing things in the world aren't always the biggest or the loudest. Sometimes they're as simple as a little girl who knows how to make pigeons dance." When they reached the bottom of the steps, the pigeons were still there waiting. Emma hummed her song one more time, and Jake watched as the birds performed their gentle ballad in the golden afternoon light. As Emma and her mother said goodbye and walked toward their car, Jake sat back down on the museum steps. He pulled out his phone to check his messages, but found himself distracted by the pigeons, who continued to move in small circles near his feet. On impulse, Jake began to hum Emma's melody. It took him a few tries to get it right, but eventually he found the tune. The pigeons looked up at him with interest, and slowly they began to dance again. Jake smiled and continued humming as the sun set behind the museum, casting long shadows across the steps. He thought about Emma, about her courage and her gift for finding beauty in difficult circumstances. He thought about the simple power of music, of connection, of taking time to notice the small miracles that happen every day. When he finally packed up his tools and headed home, Jake carried with him more than just the satisfaction of a job well done. He carried the memory of a little girl's secret, and the knowledge that sometimes the most profound encounters come from the smallest moments of kindness. The pigeons watched him go, still swaying gently to the rhythm of a song that lingered in the autumn air long after the last note had faded away.